Special guest speaker to grace the valedictory session of the 5-day FDP. So it is my privilege to introduce Dr. M.E. Veda Sharan, an esteemed professor in the Department of English as Second Language Studies at the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. He is interested in lexicography, ELT and literature. Teaching vocabulary and reading are his core areas of study. Other areas he loves reading in are history, anthropology, and current affairs. With decades of experience in English language education, literature, and communication skills training, Dr. Veda Sharan has distinguished himself as a dedicated scholar, effective administrator, and a visionary leader. He serves as the nodal officer for InflibNet at EFL-U, ensuring seamless integration of digital academic resources, and has been a driving force behind numerous initiatives to enhance academic access and infrastructure. His research spans Indian English literature, English language teaching, and interdisciplinary pedagogical practices, earning him recognition as a thought leader in his field. In 2023, Dr. Veda Sharan was elected president of the EFL-U Teachers Association, where he champions faculty welfare, transparent governance, and collaborative academic environment. Known for his advocacy of moderation, inclusivity, and professionalism, he has worked tirelessly to promote constructive dialogue and institutional accountability. Through his leadership, teaching, and service, Dr. Veda Sharan continues to inspire both his peers and students, playing a pivotal role in shaping the future of English studies and higher education in India. We are indeed fortunate to have him with us today, and I am sure that his presence will enrich our program and leave a lasting impact on all of us. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Veda Sharan onto the stage with a warm round of applause. Welcome, sir. I request Mr. Satyanarayana to welcome him with the bouquet. Thank you so much, sir. Now I request sir to take over the stage.
A very good morning to you all, and thank you for having me here. I am grateful to the management of the university, to the Department of English, and the organizers of this very interesting, very important FDP. And I'm sure you have profited a lot from this. You'll be taking a lot with you. I'm sure you will become better teachers and better people than right away. So thank you so much once again for inviting me here. Today I wanted to share some ideas that I have gathered over a few decades of some service. I have taught from the intermediate level to including school level to PhD levels. And I can claim some experience in doing these things. And I want to share some of these things with you here. When you read Greek drama, you find the expression deus ex machina. Deus ex machina literally translates from the Greek into, actually Latin, into English as God from the machine. This is the original expression, DEUS, Deus ex machina, God from the machine. The idea is about finding a solution to a very difficult problem in a very unsatisfactory kind of way. So there is a drama that is going on with a lot of complicated situations and a god comes and solves the problems in Greek drama. And on the stage, this god would descend over to the stage from a machine. And that's how you have this expression, Deus ex machina. So it's a problem that is unsolvable or difficult to solve. And there is some kind of unsatisfactory solution that is given to this problem. But the problem somehow, in some way or the other, still lingers there. I want to begin our session by looking at a very delightful couplet from Kabir, which is a favorite of mine. You must forgive the accent. It says, Kasturi kundal base, mrugdunde vanumahi. Says, Kasturi kundal base, mrugdunde vanumahi. जैसे गति गति राम है दुनिया देखे नहीं. So there is this mythical animal that is supposed to search for this very beautiful, fantastic perfume called kasturi. It searches the whole forest for it, but it does not know that this perfume is there in its stomach itself. It is coming from itself, but it searches the whole forest. And Kabir says, God is within us, and we go on searching for God outside us. And this is a strange thing that we do. So I'll come back to this a little later, and then get on with these things here. I want you to look at this concept of a classroom. What does a classroom mean? A classroom is both inclusive and exclusive. It walls in and walls out people. It walls in a group and walls out people who are not from the group. It creates a kind of unity of status, of level, and so on, of people who are at the same level, presumably. But we know it is not so. There are as many challenges, as many varieties as there are people in the classroom. So I want to look at this kind of situation in the modern day world, where technology has advanced so far. It has provided us with a tremendous amount of opportunities and challenges. Yeah, can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, I want to focus today on imagination, which I think is a key to learning language. And this is a quote I like from Thoreau. The world is but a canvas to our imagination. It is nothing more than a canvas to our imagination. And I would invite you to consider the possibilities of these things, that our imagination can project onto this canvas what we want and as we want and how we want and when we want it. And this is how we understand the world. Our understanding of the world is unique to us. How we look at this world. Next one, please. Yeah. So now we have the compartmentalization of these things, which I think is a necessary thing. And there is this deracination, by which I mean cutting out uprooting language from its learning. And this is one important aspect of it, in the sense that when we come to learning English as a language, there are many different kind of challenges and situations that we have to meet up with. One is that as a language teacher, this is a question I often wrestle with. What is it that we are doing in the classroom? What are we teaching our learners when we say that we are teaching a language? This is still a question for me. I haven't found any satisfactory answer for that. The history teacher teaches history and some interpretation of history in the classroom. For example, a history teacher might discuss the role of an individual in the history of a society, of a country. Can a great figure like Napoleon change the fate of a country, change the fate of a continent called Europe? Or is Napoleon merely a product of the times? Can one individual have the power to change a country? What a history teacher does, uses language, but the focus is on the role of Napoleon. In our case, the case of language teaching, the focus is on language itself. It is like a crane trying to lift itself up. How can that be possible? How can we study language by using language? How can we know how we appear without a mirror? Language is the mirror for the other subjects. But can we understand this? So when we teach language in the classroom, are we simply defining nouns and pronouns and finishing with the tenses? And what role does this play in the classroom? I want to ask these questions there. Next one, please. Now we use these militaristic strategies in the classroom. Strategy, as you know, is a general. It comes from the Greek word strategos, which means a general. And the general has to take into consideration such things as the opponent's army, his or her own army, the weather conditions, the time conditions, the weapons that they have, and they have to plan accordingly. And we strategize in our classrooms, depending upon the challenges that our syllabus might provide us or the opportunities, the situations that it provides us. So we use this term strategies, and then we use that word drill. Army people drill in the parade grounds, carry out these exercises. And now we do these things in the classroom, where we carry out drills, group drills and individual drills and so on. And this is what is the kind of thinking that brings us into this terminology is something I want to think about. So, are these desirable consequences of this kind of thinking, or are they undesirable consequences? I would like to leave that to you to consider these things. But I think in a way these are very limited. Now when I have been on many boards of studies, and the general idea is that we have to make language as easy as possible. Don't make it so difficult for them to learn. And it has now become almost impossible to fail in language examinations. How do we expect our learners to seriously think about the language when it is basically, at a disadvantage for this compared to other subjects? We don't want to challenge our readers by giving them more complicated language. But language is a complicated thing. It's a very, very, probably it's the eighth wonder of the world when you look at it that way. Next one, please. Yeah, and then it is a subject that can be broken down into chunks where we have these, where we have a syllabus which we cover, which is a very interesting term. Cover also means, as you know, to hide, and I'm sure you punned on this thing. So are we going the whole range, or are we hiding things? Right. Now we look at the LSRW skills, which has a logic behind it, because the child begins by listening and then goes on to speaking and then reading and then writing. And then we add these days grammar and vocabulary to these things. A lot of work has happened in these areas thanks to technology such as corpus studies and corpus linguistics. We have the amazing corpuses out there, the British National Corpus, which is available for free on the internet. The Vienna Corpus gives you a whole list of words about academic vocabulary. There is the Brown Corpus. How technology has made life very easy for us. Right, next one, please. Yeah, and then we have these, by Olympian, I mean a very superior kind of attitude. Very high up there, and they look down upon these people. And they choose these syllabuses and textbooks and so on. Now, how far are these really relevant to us? We have to use a teachable lesson in the text, in the classroom. A lesson that fits the 50 minutes or 60 minutes that we have. And then we have what is sometimes insultingly called bookish language. But is language only bookish language? There are whole books on bad language. Language can be bad in the sense of, it is inappropriate, it is unsuitable, it is wrong. It can also include curses and abusive words and all that. And this is something that we don't deal with in the classroom. But a language, if it has to be holistic, has to look at all these aspects in learning. And so we have a very skewed, twisted kind of learning in the classroom, which is very highly sanitized, and therefore to that extent artificial. Okay? So the textbook writers, there is this term which I'm sure you've heard of, what is called chrestomathy, C-H-R-E-S-T-O-M-A-T-H-Y. Chrestomathy is the science of choosing texts to teach people language in the target language. There's a whole art of it called this. Next one, please. Yeah. Now, the other problem that we have is that most of our textbooks are the result of white writers. Mostly white people have their lessons incorporated into our textbooks. T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound. So it's kind of Snow White textbooks that we have. These days, of course, we have people like Kiran Desai and all of them coming in, Vikram Seth. But generally, it's a very Snow White kind of thing that we have here. And then we have the politically influenced lessons. I'm sure I'm getting myself into some danger by saying that we have to include mediocre writers like Mahatma Gandhi in our textbooks, which is not really helpful in our daily lives. To put Gandhi beside Robert Frost is such a travesty of things. Right. So this is another issue that we face as language teachers. Next one, please. Yeah. Language has to be imaginative. This is the main point that I want to make of my talk here. Unless we imagine language, unless our imagination is strong, unless we are actively involved with imagination, I think we will not be able to pick up language. We have to imagine what the word signifies in every single case that you can think of. When you look at a new word, we have to use our imagination. When we teach this range between tepid and frozen, or frigid, or rigid, or gelid, in between we have so many things like cool, cold, chill. There's a whole range of intensity of cold and heat. How do we teach these things in the classroom, except through the imagination that we have? And this is a point, this is, as you know, fluency. Using the right word in the right place is what constitutes fluency. That there is a difference between warm and hot and boiling and searing and things like that. These are intensities of heat. There's a range of words. And this is where our imagination has to kick in. So in this world where we think that technology can solve our problems for us, it is very true, absolutely true. When Gutenberg invented the printing press, it definitely was a revolution in learning. The literacy rates in Europe shot up. The holy books were put in the hands of the people. And that's a tremendous thing. And the internet, artificial intelligence now these days has the same kind of impact on our lives. And sometimes it's scary. I believe the chief who designed artificial intelligence has resigned because there's no control on AI. Is a Terminator kind of world going to happen in our lives? Will the machines take over? This is a scary prospect that we have to face. And these are the design tools that we're going to use in the classroom these days. Right, so, but whatever tools we might use, it is the individual who has to use the imagination and understand the word. Technology makes it easier, provides us more choices. But I think we are constrained by the human factor, that these machines, these technologies are subject to the human factor. The human has to understand, internalize, and engage with the word, with the situation. And unless we do these things, we might have as sophisticated machines as we wish, but our learners are not going to engage with the words and understand them. And this is how I want you to think about how to basically create a kind of interest and imagination in the learners. To go back to the old Chinese proverb, if you give a human being a fish, if you give a person a fish, you feed them for a day. That if you teach them how to fish, they will sustain themselves. Maybe not so much variety in their lives to eat, but every day they can have a fish, at least, if you teach them how to fish. So are we giving them a fish every day, or are we teaching them how to fish in the classroom? Is something that we need to think about. I want you to think about these things. I'm sure you will have your own personal, individual answers to these questions. And language is basically, it is symbolic. It's a symbol. Right from its origins, it has been symbolic. Some people think that language evolved from decoration. Each decoration on a person, each ornament has a certain significance. And the primitive people would have decorated themselves, and each ornament, each decoration showed a status in society. And from this, language this is a theory about language. Right. So this is something that you can look at. I mean, it is speculative, but interesting to look at. Yeah, next one, please. Right. Now, this is something that I have taken from Hard Times, Charles Dickens' novel. Hard Times. There's a fellow called Bitzer who learns according to Thomas Gradgrind's syllabus. he is asked to define a horse. And this is how he defines it. It's a quadruped, gramnivorous, 40 teeth, and so on. And you can see his name here, Bitzer. He learns in bits. And he has no understanding of what a horse is. In the same class, there's a little girl who is the daughter of a horse trainer. He breaks horses. And Gradgrind asked this girl, Sisichu, what is a horse? And this girl is unable to define a horse because she knows so much about a horse and she doesn't know where to start. So that is the experience. And there is a deracinated kind of knowledge that we have. Bitzer is here in this thing. And in the novel you can see the sunlight falls on Bitzer and brings out his physical features, which are pale, anemic, and so on. The same sunlight falling on Sisiju shows how healthy and ruddy she is. It's a very interesting kind of situation that Dickens describes, and it shows their mental makeup as well. So, yeah, there's a long list. I have just taken a small excerpt from what Bitzer says. The whole paragraph of bits that he says here. Is this what we are teaching our learners there? Are they able to integrate what they are learning to their experience? And how can AI and all these things help us do this integration? Next one, please. Yeah. So, there is no scope for wonder in Thomas Gradgrind's school. When children sing this song, he cuts them down saying, don't wonder, you need to learn things. But without wonder, without admiration, how do we learn these things? This is something, next one please. Yeah, then so this is another aspect of our profession I wanted to think about. What is it to teach? Right. So, teach comes from the Germanic tesan, which is to present, to offer to view. Okay? And I think AI and all our devices are very useful in presenting these things here. And what is the implication of a present? When you present someone with a gift or something, how they use it, when they use it, why they will use it, or whether they will use it at all is not in your hands. Does it define our profession? And how do we relate it to our times now? In the aspect of presenting something. And it has a Sanskrit origin in the form of disha, which is direction, a path. So how do these ideas dovetail into or get into our thinking about teaching and what we do as professionally as teachers? Right, next one please. Yeah, so now we have these interesting things that have come up here. So language learning has become a kind of a grim task for us, where we have these terms like method, which basically etymologically means a way. Meta, hod, thinking about a method. Right, and then we have this one-size-fits-all kind of attitude for us. Right, so this is, I'm sorry about the mistakes there. Today people are frustrated with the lack of success with our methods. We have all sorts of approaches and methods. The terminology is very confused. People use a term like approach for communicative language teaching. Sometimes they say it's a method, sometimes they say it's an approach, sometimes they say it's a technique. The whole terminology is completely messed up, and nothing seems to work. And today we live in what is called a post-method era, where we no longer rely upon a single method, but we do whatever is useful in the classroom. You could read about this post method if you Google for this guy called Kumara Vadivelu. He is a teacher at San Jose University in the United States. His whole text is available on the internet. It's called Post Method by Kumara Vadivelu, who was a product of the CIEFL. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, this is one aspect of it. The post-method kind of teaching says that the responsibility of the language teacher is different from the responsibility of the chemistry teacher, in the sense that as language teachers, we have to teach people to question everything, to not to simply believe what they are saying. It is said that about 2,500 years ago, the Buddha is supposed to have told his students, his disciples, to listen to him but not to believe what he said, but to actually question what he was saying and only accept what is useful for humanity and not simply accept whatever anyone might say. So this is the new approach of experts in language teaching towards language. That language teachers have to train their students to question, challenge everything that they read, that there is no respect for the printed word, and that everything, without exception, has to be questioned and challenged in terms of humanity. So this is one aspect of the thing there. So how does it fit in with our profession? How possible is it? Is something I will leave for you to think about. Okay. So can we go to the next one, please? Yeah, so this is, ironically, method is connected with an exodus, which is a leaving and going out. So how do we deal with a method? In my department earlier was called the Department of Methods. Now it is called Department of English as Second Language Studies. So basically, what are we doing here in our university? We are looking at English as a second language, which is going to follow the original mother tongue. And what happens when English is taught as a second language? This is what we do. We have a lot of work that has happened in this area. Bilingualism and simultaneous bilingualism and parallel bilingualism, all kinds of terminology has come into these things. Yeah, next one, please. So this is another problem that we face in the classroom, which is a lockstep approach. All students are to progress at the same speed. I think here artificial intelligence and modern technology will liberate us from the responsibilities of these things, in the sense that we can now go on to individualize, personalize teaching. And this, I think, is the greatest benefit that modern technology offers, that we can identify the interests of these students and teach them according to their interests, whether it is to make an area a core area and to develop our classes, our lessons from this aspect of it. Also, there is a lot, I think unless we combine the present knowledge we have about language teaching and use it in conjunction with technology, understand that technology can but play a supplementary role, but the main role has to be played by us as teachers in the classroom. So this is the point I want to stress here. To identify a core area our students are interested in and develop vocabulary and so on from there. Now, for example, research has shown that an average student requires anything between 5 to 17 exposures to a word. To really understand a word requires from 5 to 17 exposures. Sometimes it's 5 and sometimes it's 17. Can we use technology to repeat these words for them in the classroom or outside the classroom? Is something that we need to, I'm giving it to you as an example here, I'm mentioning this as an example here. There's a lot of other research in other areas, listening and speaking and reading have also, a lot of research has happened in these things too. Identify the problems and their solutions and their approaches and so on. So this is one aspect of it that I want you to look at here in conjunction with modern technology. Can we pace our repetition? Learning a word is a process. It is not a product. To learn a word is to learn its spelling, its pronunciation, its meaning, its usage in terms of slang, formal, informal, taboo, vulgar, and so on. What are its other implications that a word has? So learning a word is not a product, it's a process. It takes time to learn a word, to engage with a word. And how can we use technology to, make this process easier and better for our learners? This is one aspect that we need to consider here. So basically, to take the another example of reading. When we teach reading, we ask these basic questions such as, what is it to read? What is a good reader? How do you define a good reader? Right? So at a very simple level, a good reader is supposed to be someone who can read up to 200 to 250 words a minute with an 80% comprehension and understanding of the text. How do we achieve this in the classroom? What are the strategies of reading? What are the errors that our readers make in the classroom? One of them is that we read everything at the same speed. How desirable is that? Obviously it is not, because as Bacon tells us, some books are to be chewed and some books are to be tasted and some books to be read by deputy. Depending on the importance of the text, we have to look at these things. Right? So, this is a problem that we face in the classroom, that we have a lockstep approach where every student is tied to the other students and their progress is hindered by other students. So I think modern technology will provide a very useful solution to this lockstep approach in our classrooms. Okay, can we go to the next one, please? Next slide. Yeah, okay. Right, so this is one issue I think that we have here. Right, we classify people, we divide people into basic and intermediate and so on. And obviously, simply remembering a word is not just, it's not muscle memory that we have, things that we do automatically. So in that sense, we have to rely upon our own imagination to tide over these issues. We have to internalize language and sort of base it on our experience in doing these things. Right, next one, please, if you can do that. Okay, so here we have these approaches to language, English for academic purposes and English for general purposes, and a whole lot of things that we have, English for specific purposes. Sometimes I feel these are defeatist attitudes in the sense that when we look at, for example, English for specific purposes, we are limiting the learning of language to a very specific kind of vocabulary, a very specific kind of need. For example, you identify receptionists or secretaries or air traffic controllers, and you design a vocabulary for them, you design a syllabus for them, and you teach only that much. It's as if we are bargaining with language to say only, I will learn only this much and not more than that. But language is something that is vast. It is concerned with our lives. It shapes lives and is in turn shaped by life. But if we look at language in pieces, we're not going to learn much from that. That we still have to look at language in a holistic manner, not just simply for a limited purpose. And I think this is something we need to instill or inculcate into our learners' behaviors and lives, basically, to make them feel a pleasure, a happiness in learning language, in improving their vocabulary and so on. They should feel a happiness, a pleasure in learning new words. They should have a sense of achievement in these things. And this will happen only when they use their imagination, when they get interested in these languages. So we might have as much technology as we want. And if we don't have this interest in, evoke the interest of the learners in acquiring language, learning a language, it's not going to be of much help. This is a plea that I want to make to you, that we need to connect our lessons to the daily lives of our learners, whether it is movies or cricket or whatever it might be. We have to relate it to those aspects of the thing. Next one, please. So this attitude is universal now. It has crept all over into every aspect of language learning here. Next one, please. This is a dictionary from the 1960s called the Concise Oxford Dictionary. And it explains the word concourse. I think it's a familiar word now if you have traveled by the metro. We have a concourse where a platform where everybody meets. So this is a usage sentence, an example that is taken from the philosophy of an Englishman, Bishop Berkeley. Right, after explaining concourse as a collection, a coming together of people and items, this is the sentence that the dictionary gives as an example of usage. This is a dictionary from the 1960s. Right, next one, please. No, earlier one, just go to the previous one. No, previous, back. Go back. This is the one. Now we have the COD has been, the new version of the COD is the COED, the Concise Oxford English Dictionary, which is a native speakers dictionary, not a learner's dictionary. So it works at a higher level, much more complicated. Right, and it describes concourse as an action of coming together, not conning together, or meeting. And the example sentence is simply given as coming together of bodies. Can you go to the previous slide, please? Previous one, earlier one. The previous slide. Previous one. Now here you can look at the example sentence. Fortuitous is accidental, happening by chance. This is how Berkeley explains the formation of the universe. A fortuitous concourse of atoms, a joining up of atoms by accident. And this is a concourse. Go to the next one, please. So look at the difference in the examples. Why do you think the example has been so starkly simplified? Right. Next one. The example here is much simplified. Probably because the dictionary writers have seen that there is a decline in the ability of learners to understand, or they want to have a more user-friendly kind of setup. What do you think has happened? Is it a decline in standards that the examples are much simpler, much less challenging now than they were earlier? And do we see this kind of decline in our learning abilities? And how far is it true to say that? I don't know. Next one, please. Right, and there's another question that our colleagues have raised, that we should not teach daffodils in India because daffodils are not there in India. We don't have daffodils in India, so why should we teach daffodils in India? Okay. So what is the thinking behind this kind of demand? Is it because we can only understand what we see and we can't imagine things? Right. Emerson wrote this very beautiful poem called Brahma. I'm sure you would have read it. And people of his time complained that he was talking about a pagan god, a Hindu god. And Emerson is supposed to have said, okay, take away Brahma from there and put Yahweh, the Jewish god. And it's the same thing. Okay, so should we not teach daffodils in India because we don't have daffodils in our country? Why do you think it is an issue at all? How do we learn about ancient civilizations, cultures, and so on if we don't use our imagination? Right, so these are some of the questions that I have tried to grapple with. And I think this comes out of a very narrow kind of thinking. Now you have people like Ngugi, who died recently, the African thinker, teacher, and so on, who wanted to abolish the English department in Africa. By the way, if you briefly look at it, the literature department began in Germany in the second half of the 19th century. A department to study literature that we have now began in Germany in the second half of the 19th century. Until then, people never thought that literature was worth studying. And then it moved on to the United States, Europe, other parts of Europe, and so on. And today we have the Department of English, which actually began in Germany to study literature. The literature department has its origins in Germany. second half of the 19th century. Right. So, to interpret literature, to teach the language and so on, is a very recent kind of development that has, relatively recent development that has happened here. Right. And then this is, here we can see the attitudes people have towards language and literature, the controversies that are going on now. You know that until the 1980s, people thought that vocabulary was not important to teach. You taught grammar and people acquired the vocabulary by themselves. But now the tables have turned and vocabulary is sometimes seen as being more important than grammar itself. So these are some of the, what I'm trying to say here is that language learning and thinking about it has not crystallized. It's very, very fluid, and it's not very sure of itself in many ways. So I would like you to think about it. Should we teach daffodils in the classroom or not? My answer would be yes, absolutely yes, and we should do that kind of thing. Next one, please. Right. So this is one aspect that I want you to consider once again. What is our attitude towards language? Do you agree that our function is not only to teach a language, but to develop the critical abilities of our learners? Make them think critically about a news item, to consider the fact that a newspaper is delivered to us every day at our doorstep for something for as little as 5 rupees. Why is this happening? How is it possible that every day a newspaper is delivered at our doorstep for 5 rupees? Who are the people behind these things, and why are they behind these things? When we read a text, who is it addressed to? Who are the writers of this text? Why did they take the trouble to publish this, make it public? What are the intentions behind? These are the responsibilities of a teacher, according to language teachers, experts in language teaching. That you need to make them think critically, not unquestioningly accept whatever is stated there in any text, whether it is a political text or a religious text. You have to question it. Is it possible, feasible, desirable? Is this the responsibility of the language teacher? And how are we going to use our modern technologies to understand these things, to facilitate our functioning in the classroom? So I thought I'd just kind of juxtapose some of our problems and possibilities in the context of modern technology here. And this is the main intention that I have in bringing up some of these things. So how desirable is it? How feasible is it to question everything that we do in the classroom, in whatever we read, to approach it with a critical mind? Of course, you know that there is something called CDA, critical discourse analysis, which is a kind of neo-Marxist kind of thinking, which examines language as a perpetrator of hierarchies. So if you were to say a sentence like, woman is a social animal, is it acceptable? Why is it acceptable to say man is a social animal? This is the mischief that language creates, where it makes half of humanity disappear by its things. So are we to draw the attention of our learners towards the way in which language functions, the way in which language prioritizes privileges and degrades and humiliates certain sections of society, certain ways of life. If you watch cricket, for example, you would have seen that when a batsman tries to hit the ball, misses it and falls down, the commentator says that was an agricultural shot because it was ugly, it was not graceful. So agriculture is something that is not favored by the English language in its values. Because probably it was a language developed by the city people. And you have a word like urbane, for example, coming from urban. Urbane is to be highly cultured, civilized. You don't make those horrible sucking sounds when you drink coffee. So you're urbane. Right? And, but the rustic people do, I suppose. Okay, if you look at a word like villain, villain actually meant anyone who lived in a village. And now the word has, of course. So the English language insults people who live in a village. It insults women. You have a word like shrew, S-H-R-E-W, shrew, which means a woman with a sharp tongue, but there's no word in English which means a man with a sharp tongue. Or you have a battle axe, a termagant, a blue stocking, a whole list of words that insult women. Blue stockings, as you know, are women who are interested in literature, which is a pejorative, insulting word for them. So how do we work out these things, basically? I think we need to use English as a contrast to compare our languages with, to understand our languages better. And I think this is where translation in the machine comes in very useful, to see if there are word equivalents in these terms, in these things. So it's a whole lot of possibilities and challenges that we have in the world as we face it today. Next one, please. Right, so limiting the scope and resources of language learning and teaching. How do we choose these things? What is appropriate for us? And so on. Next one, please. Right, so this is the term that I was talking about. Christianity is the choice, so is the art, the science, if you want to call it that, of choosing literary texts to teach language to teach a target language. Christianity is the science of selecting texts to teach a language. And here, I think in our context, Christianity has become very conservative in the sense that we stick to a few writers, the canonical writers, and we exclude a lot of other, useful, interesting stuff. Right. Until very recently, you could have, I'm sure you know how much opposition a poem like Sylvia Plath's Daddy had because of the last line, which says, Daddy, Daddy, you bastard, I am through. So because of this word, they did not want to have this amazing poem, but now they are using it which is a positive kind of change, I suppose. This is a very conservative kind of syllabus selection that we have now, where we have some chosen authors read in the chosen way and nothing much happens out there. I think we have repeated these things so many times that we are now, almost unconscious of what we are doing in the classroom. Next one, please. This is one book that has been it still is very popular. It's called The Golden Treasury of the Best Songs and Lyrics in the English Language, edited by a guy called Paul Grave in 1861. And the governor of Bombay asked it for 10,000 copies of this book. And this is what he says in justification. We shall be to these people what the Greeks have been to us. As you know, European civilization is founded on Greek civilization. Is the root, the base of European civilization. And the governor of Bombay is asking for these textbooks so that the English will become for us what the Greeks have been to the Europeans. By the way, it's very interesting to see that the British established the universities in our country in Madras, Calcutta and Bombay in the year 1857, when they had their backs against the wall, when they were facing the greatest rebellion that they had ever faced, challenge to their rule they had ever faced in their history. And they had the vision and the confidence in themselves to start these universities when they were almost losing this fight. Something really remarkable. Right, so our textbooks in other languages and so on are the foundation of these things. So next one, please. Yeah, so this is another problem that I had with these, with teaching in the classroom. When you look at a nonsense poem, which is pure fun, you want to extract a moral from it. The 7 Ages of Man is taken from As You Like It, As You Know, where Jacques is talking about the uselessness of human life, of how purposeless it is. And this has become a very popular thing. But in the poem, in the drama itself, it has an entirely different implication. You know, immediately after Jacques completes his listing of the 7 Ages of Man, Shakespeare has an instruction there: enter Orlando with Adam. Now, this is one very powerful situation there. Jacques is saying that human beings are born toothless and they die toothless. And in between they achieve almost nothing. That is his complaint. But Orlando, you know, is the exiled brother. And Adam is his servant, but whom he treats as his father. Adam is the original man. That's a very important thing to notice. He treats Adam like his father, even though he is his servant. It's a very pure, selfless love that Orlando has for Adam and Adam has for Orlando. And Shakespeare is implicitly asking the question, where in your list of 7 Ages of Man is this pure, selfless love figuring? It is this selfless love that gives meaning to our lives and makes them really good and really meaningful. And in one sense, it is a slap across Jacques' face. Right. So Jacques is rejected by Shakespeare, but yet we quote this poem and say, this is what Shakespeare says. But Shakespeare has actually rejected Jacques. And this is a very narrow-minded view of looking at these things. Can we use technology to liberate ourselves from these kinds of approaches to literature? Right? Next one, please. Of course, I don't have to go into these things. This is a problem that we all face. We have to teach selections made compulsory by the government for their own agendas and their own purposes. Next one, please. Yeah, and then we have this tendency to dictate notes, and then the routine exercises in grammar. I just hurry through so we can have some questions. Next one, please. Next one. Right. So most of our books in language teaching are imported from the West. I believe the British make something like $2 billion every year, which is a huge amount of money, in exporting textbooks on English language teaching. as much as $2 billion. $2,000 million is the sum the British earn. And now we are beginning to look at English as what is called a lingua franca, which is a very controversial term, but now it has been somewhat tamed, I think. English as lingua franca is the link language. And we have had a rich experience of lingua francas in our country. We have had Sanskrit as the lingua franca. We have had Persian as the lingua franca. We are a language which connected people who spoke different languages. And the educated people in the earlier times spoke Sanskrit. In the medieval times, they spoke Persian. And across the country, they could travel and they could engage with each other in these. These are the lingua francas of our country. Right. So today, English is seen as the lingua franca, the link language. How far is it true? Now, the ELF contrasts with what is called the vernacular, which these days is understood as the local language, comes from the Sanskrit varna, which means a color. Varna means color in Sanskrit. And this is the origin of the word vernacular. And it originally had the meaning of the language of a slave or a servant, as opposed to the language of the master. But now this meaning has been tamed down to convey the idea that we're talking about a local language and not the language of the conqueror, the colonizer. Right. Next one, please. Right. So there is one movement among the Dalits where they have an English goddess to. You can find this article in the BBC. If you Google for this, you'll find it. Next one, please. Yeah. Now we have the concept of what is called the learning burden. The learning burden is the new concept, relatively speaking, developed by Paul Nation and people like that, who say that the more distant, the more different the mother tongue is from the target language, the more difficult it will be for the learner to pick it up. And this is called the learning burden. Right. So how do we tackle this thing? When we look at English and Hindi, we find a lot of similarity between the, especially in terms of vocabulary. We have things like naam, name, path, path, pad, ped, pedal, foot. So the learning burden can be reduced to some extent by looking at these similarities. And how does, once again, our technology help us in bringing these concepts together, these ideas together? Right. So the previous one, please. Yeah, now this is another problem that I faced in the classroom, where we teach our skills in isolation. We look at these things in an isolated way, but we know that listening feeds into speaking and into, reading and so on. How do we integrate these skills? That is one issue that I really found. Next one, please. Next thing. Yeah. Yeah, unless we root language teaching in human experience, we cannot really make a useful class out there. Okay, at a very simple level, every new word has to be used by our students based on their experience. That they should make a sentence with a new word based on their experience. And unless they do that, they will not understand the words. So I think here AI and the internet can be very useful in that sense, in the sense of affording illustrations and so on. Next one, please. Yeah, so we need to build on this. Children are naturally imaginative. And they have different strategies of the use of language. Next one, please. Okay, this is one example of how children can be imaginative. How the language is manipulated by the kids, and how day after tomorrow is explained in the language of a child. And this is the imaginativeness of children that we need to have, how the strategy is used to explain the concept of day after tomorrow to a younger child. Than that. Right. Okay, next one, please. Yeah, this is something we have seen. So, and language is the paint that we use to do this thing. Next one, please. This is a poem I have chosen to show how imagination and language are connected. Right. So unless we have the spider's web is invisible until light falls on it, and we don't notice light until the spider's web catches it. And I think in this way, language and imagination give expression to each other. They make each other visible to us, understandable to us. Okay, next one, please. Yeah, this is the brief presentation I wanted to make. I'll stop here for any questions that you might want to ask and any clarifications that you would like to. Yeah. Right. Welcome any comments and questions that you wish to make.
Yes, first we would like to thank you, sir, for such an insightful expert talk on language in general, language teaching, and language learners, and how the challenges that all of us face every day in the English classroom. How nicely you explained, and that's why we need technology and AI. What is the need of AI? And all that, the points you covered were truly excellent. And also, I would like to, as you said, that language and imagination, it should be treated like how we imagine in the classroom, and how that should be inculcated in our students also. The point that you stressed. Also, the way language privileges or degrades certain sections of the society, how you explained that, and we are grateful for your sensitizing us towards these often overlooked aspects of the which are there in the language classroom. And we leave with valuable insights and much to ponder regarding our role as language teachers in ever-evolving digital landscape. So thank you so much,
Thank you so
sir.
much for your very kind words.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. Now, if participants have some questions for sir, you are welcome to ask. Yes?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
This is Fauzia Begum from St. Joseph Degree and PG College, Hyderabad, and the offline participant. Sir, everything I understood, I would like to, as I am taking care of the undergraduate students, I could not get this. So could you please elaborate on this? How can imaginative use of language through inclusive technology nurture critical 21st century skills like collaboration, creativity, and empathy by taking the examples of undergraduate students.
Okay. So how do we use technology at the undergraduate level to teach language and imagination? Is that...
It's inclusive technology nurture critical 21st century skills like collaboration, creativity, and at the same time empathy.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. People say that, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And when we look at some of the tragedies that are happening around us, whether it is in our own country or in Yemen or in the Middle East, we see the suffering of children and so on. And I think a description of these things verbally would be much less effective than a picture of these people suffering there. So in that sense, if you could just take up a contemporary issue and share it with these people and ask for their references to show the suffering in a visual way, with the sound and with their voices and so on. I think that would be bringing bringing the situation very close to their hearts, and then it would arouse their imagination. They would empathize with those people. And I think we can't expect miracles to happen immediately. There is no panacea as such, which is a universal cure for everything. But every time they empathize, they feel strongly. I think that is what will provoke language in them, the desire to learn language and to express their ideas in those situations. So in that sense, the technology is bringing the world closer to us. And it is helping us to generate more easy methods in the classroom. Right? Many people believe that we can't teach a language, but a language will teach itself to us. And people say, and some others say, that a language is a verb, in the sense that language results in an action. In that sense, language is a verb. So when you go home and say, I'm hungry, it's not a statement that you're making, but it's a request to someone to bring you food to eat. And it results in an action on the part of the other person, provided the communication has happened successfully. Right? So this is where the imagination comes in. Right? But as I said, all these things are very fine. The pictures, these things are very useful and very, very much desirable. But in the end, we have to engage with this thing. We have to engage with the picture. We have to empathize. We have to put ourselves in their situations. And until that happens, we're not going to relate to that thing, and we're not going to inspire people to use language to communicate and so on. So while I agree that all these things are very important for us, technology and so on, in the end, it is our own understanding, our own imagination that will really catch the idea and make it a part of our experience, make it unforgettable for us. Right? But as you know, please sit down. As you know, learning a word, as I said, is a process. There are related words around it. So we need to understand all these things together. Right? So, for example, if we take a word like comprehend, which we use every day, com is, as you know, is a Latin word-forming element which means together. And prehendere is to grasp, to hold. And when we say reading comprehension, we are looking at how tightly we are able to grasp the subject. Right? And the grasping is the key here. And you will understand how important grasping is if you have traveled by RTC buses. Life depends on it. Right? So in that sense, when we understand the word in its deeper dimensions, right, then we can engage better with language. It's a slow process. It's not going to happen immediately, but it is in one way a habit, in one way a conscious thinking about it. I'll give you one more example of interpret. The two words, inter meaning between, as in international, antar in Sanskrit, Hindi, and prat is prachar. So you can translate the word interpret as spreading abroad, spreading an idea abroad, which is a foreign country. That is, as a teacher, you go into the world of the student to spread an idea. And that is to interpret. It's not your world. It's a foreign world for you. It's abroad for you. So from your world, you go down into the undergraduate class and then you explain to them, interpret to them in the way that they understand. This is our job as a teacher. And these are but aids, as I said. But they cannot be a substitute. They cannot displace our human understanding, human imagination. This is the only main point that I want to make. I hope I have answered your question. Yeah, yeah, welcome.
So, any more questions for sir? Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, could you just let us know how to generate interest in the minds of language learners and how to increase their attention span?
Right. Now, these are not easy things to do. They are very difficult to do, as you know. So, where modern technology comes in is where we can personalize and individualize teaching. You can pick up an area of interest for them and center a lesson around that, model a lesson around that. So you could teach terminology about a game, let us say, and help them understand words in their superficial sense and in their deeper sense, right? So you could take up a game like football and discuss words pertaining to that and help them understand the deeper implications of these words. For example, the word competition in English actually means cooperation, right? Com meaning together and petitio means to act. And competition means acting together. The two teams playing the football match are cooperating in implementing and obeying the rules. And that is why it's called competition. This is the deeper meaning of the word competition. It actually means cooperation. And if you make them think about what they are doing in the football field, that though they are fighting against, they are competing in the sense of being against each other, they are actually cooperating in following the rules. So this is an etymological aspect of the word. So how deep you want to go is up to you. It's subject to time, your own patience, and the number of people interested in that. But you could take up a student who is interested in painting, in engineering or whatever, and center the terminology around that. And see how, but then the idea of getting pleasure from reading something is something that they have to do it by themselves. We cannot do everything for them. They have to bring some knowledge of the world to our classroom. Okay? And unless that happens, we cannot do everything for them. It's just not possible or even desirable. We can but indicate a path, and it's up to them to pursue that. We can make, in this sense, we can show interesting materials, we can bring in interesting, challenging materials to the classroom. But engaging with them will be their situation. This is something that our teachers did not have, in the sense that they did not have so much of material available for free on the internet. But now we do. Pictures and illustrations, movies, and everything like that. We can make it interactive also. So in that sense, technology is useful, but their commitment has to come from them. That's a fact we have to live with. Yeah.